A study conducted in Parma in Italy shows that when we are madly in love, our brains react exactly as we are insane. Which means, I guess, that most of us have been or are deeply irrational. But what's so strange about this is that we're not even aware of it, like convincing ourselves that walking under a ladder or spotting a black cat crossing the street means bad luck, or pressing multiple times on the elevator button to make the car arrive faster. Really? If you are among the many of us doing this and have wondered why we do this, and by the way, if it works, then you're in for a surprise. Hey everyone, my name is Martin Lindstrom. I'm the author of Biology, Truth and Lies About Why We Buy. And with me, I have the iconic Liza Donnelly. You may not recall her name, but you've for sure seen her work and her amazing illustrations in The New Yorker, at the Oscars, the Emmys, or early morning on CBS. Hi Liza, as always, it's so good to have you on the show. Tell me, do you have patience?
I like to think I'm a patient person, Martin, but I think I like things to happen when I think they're supposed to happen. So in many cases, I'm not a patient person.
I want to get to the bottom of this, and I can't think of anyone better suited to address today's question than Dr. Lee Gray of University of North Carolina in Charlotte, who made it his business to scrutinize this overlooked form of public transportation. Having written more than 200 articles on the topic and published a book, From Ascending Rooms to Express Elevators, no wonder why people refer to him as the elevator guy. Lee, welcome to our show.
I'm delighted to be here.
Here's an interesting story. How did the world look like before we had automated elevators?
Basically, for the first 100 years of elevator technology, all elevator cars, all passenger elevator cars had operators in them. There was someone there driving the elevator for you.
So it means that back in the days, you were not pressing any buttons at all, right?
That's a very good question. It depends on when we look at elevator history. Buttons, which are often called in hall call buttons. I'm in a hallway. I push the elevator. I've pushed the button to call the elevator to me. They became prevalent in the mid-1920s. Prior to that, depending on the building, certainly throughout most of the 19th century, elevator enclosures, we've all seen them in old movies, are wire cages. I would literally stand next to the elevator and I would call up to get the elevator operator's attention if the car wasn't there so that they would come pick me up.
So I guess this leads me to the ultimate question, which is, why do we press multiple times on the elevator button when we kind of know it actually may not appear quicker?
So a very easy answer is we're not very patient people. We're just not. And an example of that is, so the elevator is invented, the passenger elevator, 1850, 1860-ish. By the 1890s, so we're still in the 19th century, good elevator service from the minute I call the elevator, however I do that, the elevator operators have 30 seconds, maybe 40 seconds in the 1890s to show up. And if they don't show up in that amount of time, I'm unhappy because I want to get in, I want to get to where I'm going. As we move forward, if you were to look at elevator intervals for a Class A office building today, in some instances, it's 20 seconds. We're not patient. We want to get there right now.
Okay, let's get to the bottom of this. If I press the elevator button multiple times, does the elevator kind of forget about everyone waiting up there? go into kind of an express mode and arrive with me faster?
Nope, makes no difference at all. It may make you feel better. It's not going to hurry the elevator along at all.
But having no patience isn't new, right? If you go back to the 80s, even further back to the 1910s, people had no patience back then either, right?
Oh, right. I mean, the fundamental challenge of all elevator installations, and it has been, and the elevator industry for over 100 years has tried to solve the problem of effective and efficient elevator traffic, knowing people are impatient.
So let me get this right. The perceived waiting time has been cut down to 20 seconds. Has the smartphones had an impact here, making us kind of forget the long waiting time?
Well, the one thing the cell phone certainly does is it gives us something to do while we wait. In the past, if we can remember pre-cell phones, we stood around, and if there was an indicator telling us where the car was, we watched the car slowly move through the building as it finds its way to our floor. Now that we have cell phones, we sort of, assume the position looking down at our phones and listening for probably an audible sound when the elevator arrives. If nothing else, the sound of the doors open. It's certainly less social, although the elevator has never really been a sociable space.
It reminds me about a study where mirrors were placed in the waiting area. And that was before the cell phones really took off. And they worked as kind of a distraction. And suddenly people were busy looking at themselves, forgetting all the time it took to wait for an elevator car to arrive. Now those mirrors is our smartphones today, right? So here's a question. The elevator car is kind of a strange space, isn't it? What's the psychological take on what's going on when we're standing there waiting and looking at strangers?
In some ways, the fundamental challenge of an elevator is it's a tiny room. Simply put, we don't like people standing close to us. So if I'm by myself in the elevator car, I'll probably stand near the center. I'm very happy until someone else enters. And then I might move to a corner or back away from them. And then there's the ever popular awkward sense going through at least my head. Do I say hi? Do I ask what floor they want? Should I push the button? Most of the time, I just move to my corner and stand silently.
I never thought about this before. But when thinking about it, there's different forms of standing in an elevator, right? One of them is when you're staying in a hotel with your family. Another one is if you go to a conference. I've noticed that people's behavior is very different. Why is that?
And that's a wonderful question. And the secret really is there a common bond between people? If I'm attending a conference and it's a large conference hotel, we all have name badges on. I get on the elevator. There are 4 other people. We're all wearing name badges from the same conference. We now have a kinship. We belong to a group. Probably will talk to each other or be much more willing to talk to each other than we would in an office building where I'm going in for an appointment. I don't know anyone. I'm going to keep very much to myself.
Tell me, sometimes I've noticed that number 13 is missing. How is that possible?
Well, in some, and I don't know the complete history of this, but there are some buildings, and there's a tradition of this, some buildings will avoid numbering a floor 13 for obvious cultural reasons associated with bad luck. There are also other cultures where other numbers have a similar meaning. So sometimes in some buildings, if you go in and you look at the elevator keypad, you'll notice, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16. There is no 13th floor. Now, we all know there is a 13th floor. It's just not numbered 13. Therefore, that's supposed to make me feel better. Superstition is a powerful, powerful force.
Fascinatingly, thank you so much for taking me on a ride, so to speak. Do you know what? I've never spoken to an elevator guy before. Have you? Oh, Liza, when I looked at your illustration, you were so right. Tell me more about that illustration.
I thought it was fascinating what he was saying about elevators and pressing the buttons. But, in New York now, they have a different kind of elevator where there's no buttons to press. Instead, there's a screen where you have to press the floor that you want to go to. and then so there's no opportunity for button pressing, and then you have to then you go into the car that is designated for you, and there's no buttons in the car, so you can't press buttons there either. So it's very odd, and I'm not quite used to it yet. But I think the drawing that I did is just a visual representation of the instinct to push things many times and want that thing to come right away. That elevator needs to come, and I'm going to push it until it comes. And then half the time you forget that you even pressed the button. I know that's happened to me. Did I press that elevator button? So I just wanted to draw something visually funny about someone doing that.
Thanks, Liza, for the amazing drawings. And thanks to all of you for watching. I hope to see you again soon, where I'll take you on another Newsweek ride, exploring why we do what we do. Until then, bye for now.
Thank you.